Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is
episode 272. Today we have with us a wonderful guest. It's going to be really interesting. Rachel Pulley is an expert in, and I'm going to call you an expert because she's so passionate about living the zero waste lifestyle, and she also teaches classes on how to live the zero waste lifestyle. Rachel is a listener of the show too, which is really exciting. She knows what she's getting into today in the hot seat. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. When I heard that you were going to throw a birthday party for yourself, your 30th birthday party, and have it be a zero waste birthday party, I was like, I need to hear about this one. I've heard about the zero waste movement, and honestly, every time I buy stuff at the grocery store and I look at how much packaging I am creating just for one meal or for, 3 meals, I feel I've been getting to feel more and more guilty. I don't know if this, like the hippie in me is just getting stronger. It's like the force, right?
Yes.
But the hippie in me is getting stronger, and I'm soon gonna be wearing patchouli and stop shaving. I don't know, but I hate just this thing. We're constantly just throwing out this one-time use plastic. And I know this is a holistic health podcast. We have to look at the impact that our daily choices have on our health and on the health of the ecology of our environment, because our environment is what also holds our health in place. So our soil health, our air health, our water health, all of that, and the pollution that we're contributing is absolutely going to impact not only our health, but generations to come. And now we're seeing that one-time use plastic is leaching these chemicals that are obesogens, that are endocrine disrupting, hormone disrupting chemicals that are incredibly toxic to the body. So looking at how can we live a zero waste lifestyle is not just a hippie thing, but it's a very realistic health goal to achieve. So I'm very excited to have you on the show, to have you share with us some actionable steps we can all take to gaining health and also helping the environment.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love for you to start by sharing a bit about you so we can understand what led you to want to become excited about the zero waste lifestyle.
It's kind of a strange story because my zero waste lifestyle started in a place that usually doesn't for most people. So and this may be TMI for some people, but when I started thinking about like that time of the month, I just one day, all of a sudden, I got really overwhelmed with how much waste we create just as females, like having to deal with that time of the month. And that's where mine started, which is strange because that's one of the last changes that people going to zero waste kind of make, because it's one of the ones that it's difficult to wrap your head around. But a couple years ago, I just started thinking about that, and I was like, I wonder if there are any alternatives out there. And I just started researching, and I did find some alternatives, and that's where my journey started. It was making that change, is finding alternatives to handling that time of the month. And the more I dug into the zero waste lifestyle, I found different podcasts that I really love to listen to, really encouraging people. And I don't by any means call myself someone who is living the zero waste lifestyle. I strive to. I am not going to tell you or the listeners that I have a jar of, because most zero waste lifestyle people, they have just one mason jar full of trash for 1 year. And I am not there. That is a goal that I aspire to, obviously. But, there's so many different circumstances, like your area, where you live, that can contribute to your waste. So, but that's where I started, is I just started thinking about like how if you walk through the grocery store and you really start thinking about all of those different things that we have in packaging. And nowadays it's crazy because they'll even wrap up like individual fruit, like one banana in like a plastic wrap. And I'm like, why is that a thing? Um, so the more you dig in, though, the more you just become aware of how much we throw away and how much waste we're creating. And like you were saying, it's contributing to our health. Not only is plastic leaching into our water and things like that, they're actually finding that it's starting to get into our food, because there's something, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but there's something called a microplastic, that
Mm.
is when the plastic, because plastic never goes away. They actually they don't know how long plastic will be on this earth, and the closest they can come to kind of analyzing it and deciding how long it's going to be around is 450 to forever years. And so we really have no idea. But what plastic does is over time, it will actually break up and it becomes tinier and tinier and tinier. And in the ocean, the fish and all the different creatures will actually think it's food. So they eat it, and then it gets in their systems, and then we eat them. And then plastic is actually starting to show up in us. So not only is it leaching all those chemicals, we're actually starting to find plastic within us, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of scary in of itself. But yeah, so that's where my journey started, is the girly time of the month.
And so did you go for like a Mensi cup or Menses cup? Is that what they're called?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So there's a few different ones. There's Diva Cup. I think the one I have is like Moon Cup, I think is what it's called. But for those of you that don't know what it is, it's just like a silicone like little cup, and it's seriously life changing. There's some things that you have to get used to with it, but it's honestly one of the best zero waste changes I have made. I love that thing. But there's also different, like a lot of people talk about those period, um, the like underwear. Haven't tried those, but so there's all kinds of alternatives out there for any issue you're facing with waste. It's just a matter of getting creative.
Tell me about let's just dive right in. Don't worry about TMI, you know. I mean, the men have already either the men are just like super troopers and they're just going to like plow through this part, or they've left, and the women, we're strong, and
Yeah.
I heard that we should stop using tampons if or pads if they're not organic, because
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
the the mucosal tissue, right, the skin, basically mucosal skin of the vagina is so absorbent
Mhm.
that we will absorb the chemicals from the cotton. Think about most cotton is GMO and is sprayed
Mhm.
with Roundup, which is glyphosate,
Yep.
which it chelates heavy metals and then releases them into the kidneys and into the brain. And
Mhm.
that I interviewed Dr. Stephanie Seneff, and she talked all about that. And she said, absolutely avoid, if you're going to put something, near that region, you want to make sure it's organic. And so
Right.
then, now we're having to buy organic tampons. Um,
And they're expensive.
but they're expensive, and
Yeah.
and then again, it's still a lot of waste. And
Mhm.
so tell us a bit about the silicone. What about heavy periods? I mean, how does it work? Walk us through the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it works is it's really flexible, and they have different sizes. I can't remember. I think it's medium and large, or regular and large. And so depending, your body. So depending on which one you go with, it'll change in size. But it's a little bit of an investment up front. It's like $30, which in the long run, I mean, we spend like what, $8 a month on like a box of tampons. So in the long run, it pays for itself in just a few months. But the way it works is I boil it once a month, and I boil it for like 20 minutes. I have actually a pot that's just for that, and my husband knows it. I'm like, this is not a pot we cook in, just because that's me. And then I have a whisk. That's the whisk is the only thing. This whisk is only used for this purpose. And I will put the little Diva Cup or Moon Cup in the whisk, and I boil it for like 20 minutes once a month. But when it is, time for my monthly lovely visit from Mother Nature, I will, you just kind of, you have to get a little close and personal with yourself, quite honestly, at first. So I think that's why people have a hard time with it, because you kind of bend in one side and then it just goes on up. And what happens is it will actually create like a tight seal in that space. Because a lot of people don't know this, but there's a good amount of room kind of where it goes, but then the opening gets really, really tiny. So it's not going to go too far up. Unlike a tampon, which can. I actually know people that have had to have them surgically removed.
Oh my gosh.
Because they have either forgotten about them or some just get stuck up there. Yeah. So this will not do that. And it creates like a suction, and then the cup collects everything that happens. Like, even if you have a heavier period, I only have to change it maybe 4 times, or maybe every 4 hours if it's heavier. And you don't feel it at all.
So it doesn't like cause
and I love
cramps?
it.
Because I've had
Nope.
tampons like cause cramps. Like I can really feel. I've had that where it's like so sensitive where the tampon's actually like causing more pain, and it's
Yeah.
just too. I've had that where it's just like too painful to even have a tampon, and so you're saying that this is
Right.
because it's so flexible, whereas tampons are not. They're just like
No.
hard,
Yeah.
right? And this
Yeah.
thing's so
Yeah.
flexible, it's not going to cause any pressure in that area.
Yeah. It kind of gives your body the movement that it needs, and they're great because like my period is really regular. But if there's a day where you're like, ooh, I could start today, but I'm going to be on like a road trip. Oh my gosh, it's amazing if you're flying or if you have to travel a long time. And it's like if you're flying, you may not get to get up and go to the bathroom. But this thing, like, it lasts for a while. And again, it's one of those things where it's a learning experience. So you just kind of figure it out for yourself, how long you can keep it in. But I even sleep with mine, and it does really, really well. I honestly love it. And the amount of waste that it cuts back on, it's just like I've been using mine for maybe 2 years. And I think about that. I'm like, wow, that's a ton of waste that I've just kept out of our environment just in that in itself. And even like nowadays in America, especially, we flush tampons down the toilet. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of other countries and even America, we're starting to get into that point where we realize, oh, we probably shouldn't flush these. And there a lot of places I've noticed have started putting up signs that say, please don't flush feminine products. They mean the tampon. Just because it's flushable doesn't mean we should. So I think that people are starting to discover just how not so good they are for us. And it can lead to toxic shock syndrome. Which is, I mean, there's not, again, that's such a rare thing, but for that person that it does happen to, I mean, that's life changing just for like convenience, it's so if anyone's hesitant to try it, there are tons of, YouTubers and bloggers that have tried them and put their reviews up online. I encourage you to go and like start researching yourself. The reason that I went with the Moon Cup is because this is so silly, but because you can pick a color. I really liked that I really liked that mine could be yellow. Really like that. And they come in like a little bag, and they're really discreet. And you just kind of have to think ahead. Like if you're going into a public restroom, you may want to think about like, oh, I should probably like just wipe it off if I have to. But I just don't worry about it. I leave it in as long as I can. And then when I'm at home, it depends on your personality. You can like wash it off or wipe it off. It's really kind of a gross thing, but it's one of those things that at first you're like, ew, I can't do that. But after you start doing it for a little while, you're like, oh my gosh, what was I worried about? This is nothing. So.
Well, and
So, yeah.
I'm thinking about the women who have more cramps or have heavier periods. It actually sounds like a better solution.
Yeah. absolutely. And then I also encourage people to look into, I have a few not tampons, pads that are cloth, that are specifically designed for periods, and they're pretty awesome too. So if you're like, ooh, I want to try this, but I'm worried I'll leak, look into those too. They're really, some of them are so beautiful, and there's a lot of companies out there that make organic ones, and you just use them and then rinse them out and wash them. And so if you're worried that like you may leak even with this in, that might be a good way to kind of transition. So yeah, it's really, I love it.
That's
So
that's
that's where it
very
all started.
cool. So that's where it all started, and then what next? So if this was like the
Yeah.
gateway drug for you, what was the next drug? What was what was the next thing that you changed about your lifestyle that reduced waste?
So I started, I think it's been so long since I've been watching this YouTuber. Her name is Kate Arnell, and she has a YouTube channel. Um, she lives over in the UK, and I'm pretty sure I found her when I was researching the Moon Cup, because she uses one, and I think she was doing a review, and she is a zero waster. And so I just started to like devour these, like, this information that was out there of the YouTubers and the bloggers. And honestly, at first it wasn't even like I began to become really passionate about the planet and things like that. But the thing that turned me on to the zero waste lifestyle was just how beautiful it was, and how much it made you appreciate every little thing you have, and to really think about what you're buying and what you're bringing into your life, and how much care you put into things. The lifestyle is just beautiful to me. And that's one of the reasons I just started diving in. And it was funny because my husband, my husband is not a zero waster, but he kind of, because I do most of the cooking, and he's just been such a great sport. And I noticed him like the other day, he went into the grocery store and he was like, oh, babe, I didn't get a bag. Like, he was so excited, and I was like, I love you. I'm so proud of you. And he's starting to make those changes as well. But after watching those bloggers, I just started doing things like remembering to bring in my reusable bags to the grocery store, because, we forget about them. I would start bringing my reusable bags when I would go shopping, like not just at the grocery store, but also like when you go clothes shopping, get a reusable bag that can just fit in your purse, and you just have one. And or just carrying things out. Like, I can't believe that when we go to the gas station and you get a drink and they give you a plastic bag, plastic bags are like, they have a work life of 15 minutes. And we get rid of, I think, what was it, like a trillion? No. What was it's like a trillion annually for the planet, or something crazy like that, for something that lasts 15 minutes and we use it once. And it's really not recyclable. Luckily, there are, people are starting to make changes. A lot of grocery stores are starting to put out those bins where you can, quote unquote, recycle the plastic bags. But in the end, their work life ends. Like, they rip, they get soiled, and they're really not recyclable anymore. And unfortunately, what happens to those things is they either end up in our landfill, they end up in our ocean, and they look like food. Turtles, actually, they think that they are jellyfish. So a lot of turtles will try to eat them if they're floating in the water. And or they end up in like an underdeveloped country, and they have to deal with it. That's unfortunately where a lot of our waste goes, is to underdeveloped countries, and then they are left with, there's so many different, I feel like because there's so many different forms of waste. There's trash, there's food waste, there's clothing, like fast fashion, and just kind of getting all kinds of clothes that we don't need, and then what happens to it. So there's all kinds of things to consider. And when you're starting this journey, it's easy to kind of feel overwhelmed by it all. But the important thing to remember is that we aren't perfect, and to have grace with yourself. And I like to encourage people to start with a kind of a zero waste audit, is what I call it. You look at your trash. Yeah, seriously, you look at your trash and you're like, okay, what can I get rid of? What can I buy in glass instead of plastic? What can I just, what can I not live without? And is there any other way to get this where it's not in the plastic? So, I mean, it's definitely a journey, but it's a fun one, and one that shouldn't overwhelm, but it should uplift you. So
Mm-hmm. I love it. Tell us about your birthday party. So have you already hosted your birthday party? Did that already happen?
it did. It was last year. I turned the big 3-0.
Oh, okay. Because I heard about it on Facebook. I think it was through your sister. I think your sister posted something about it, and
Probably.
that's how I learned about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So tell us about your zero waste birthday party.
Oh, absolutely. It was so fun. So I kind of challenged myself to make this happen. It was kind of a birthday present to myself almost. And so I just planned ahead. That's really the biggest thing with the zero waste lifestyle, is you plan ahead. So I had recipes that of things that I was going to make, and when I went to the grocery store, I tried to get those products in alternative ways. Like a lot of grocery stores will actually let you buy things in your own containers. If they have a bulk section, you can get kind of burlap or cotton bags to buy the bulk, and bulk meaning in the food that's in those plastic containers that you're like, why are these there? That's why. So not bulk like mega amounts of it. But so I would get the ingredients by buying in bulk, or I actually have these stainless steel containers that the butcher will let me buy meat in, which a lot of this is actually a really popular grocery store that lets me do this. So a lot of times it's just asking. And so I bought my ingredients by doing things like that. And again, I wasn't perfect, and then I made all appetizers. And instead of using paper plates, I have like a million cloth napkins. If there's anything I can tell you to start buying, it's cloth napkins, and just put one of those babies in your purse whenever you go out. And I use those so much. And so instead of a paper plate or having to wash a ton of glass plates or worry about kids dropping them, I had like a ton of cloth napkins, and everyone got a cloth napkin, and all of the food that I made was appetizers. So it was like finger foods, and I think I made like a lemonade or something, and I just had really nice like glass cups. And actually, funny story. So this is a total side thing. My husband had like this, on the topic of parties and having large groups over when you try to do zero waste. People won't understand it at first. They kind of like, people will come over for get-togethers, and they'll bring like a 20-ounce thing of soda in a plastic, thing, and then they leave it. And I'm like, guys, so have grace with people, because it's definitely a habit that's created over time, and it takes a while for family and friends to kind of get on board, but they will, and you'll inspire them. And then that's the cool thing about this movement. So anyway, my husband had like this sports get together. It was like a drafting football thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I don't have enough plates for everybody, because they were going to bring like messy food that a cloth napkin would not have been enough for. And it was going to be a ton of guys. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I went to Goodwill, and which I'm a big thrifter. Like, that's how I find everything. I love thrifting. I think it's a great way to find gems. And I picked up like what I thought were like 6 just kind of, if they break plates. Okay, so they're really nice. I really love them. And I had his friends over, and we cooked, and we had a really great time. And Later, I looked online, and the plates I found, the set of six, goes on. They go on. They're on sale online for like $70. Like, well, that's funny. So you never know what you're gonna find. So anyway, it's just getting creative with the different things that you serve food wise. Like for instance, even with a kid party, if you decide that you want to have like a candy bar, buy cute little like bags for the kids, not plastic bags, but cute little take home bags that they can reuse and they can put the candy in, and buy the candy in like a bulk section. Or, for the decorations, find paper decorations. Or there's a lot of really amazing companies out there right now that make alternatives to like styrofoam and like the regular paper plates. They're made out of bamboo or like some kind of plant alternative, and so look for things like that. Or find games, because kids are so wonderful. When kids see something that disturbs them, they want to change it. And so if you have kids and you're like, okay, how do I get my kids on board with this whole zero waste thing? Show them like what it's doing to our world. Like take them outside and show them all the different trash, and have like a family cleanup. Or I know my sister Kat, who has also been interviewed on this, and I know you know really well, she takes her girls to do like a beach cleanup from time to time, and because kids really want to change the world, and that's the beautiful thing about it. And then they even may want to help you plan your zero waste party. So, sorry, I went off on a bit of a side note there, but
Oh, I
so
love
the
it.
zero waste, the zero waste party went really well. And then at the end of the night, all I had to do was, I had some dishes to wash, but in the long run, to me, that's worth it. And then I just threw all those my cloth napkins in the washing machine, and that was it. So it's really just about, okay, usually I'd use paper or plastic here. What else can I do? Can I find something at Goodwill? Can I use mason jars instead? So it's really just thinking outside of the box, but it ends up being a fun like game in the end.
Mm-hmm. I love your idea of thrift stores. I too am a thrifter. Love going to thrift stores. They're total
Yay!
gems. I once got, and this is, my husband and I have been eBaying since like for the last, well, he's had this eBay account since 2000. So that just gives you an idea. But I've been eBaying with him since I met him, so 10 years ago. And
Wow.
back in when we lived in Vegas, we were like hardcore eBaying. We'd go around to thrift stores, and I found a Champion juicer for $9, and I sold it for
Wow.
$112. So from
Nice.
$9 to $112, because I knew that Champion juicer was worth something. And I'd find like $20 wedding dresses and sell them for $100 on
Yep.
eBay, that kind of thing. And we actually built a whole little business out of it for a few years, where
Oh wow.
we actually, for about 3 years, that's what was our main income, and we did really well, was selling used jeans on eBay. We would go around all the thrift
Yes.
stores, and we would find really good jeans. You looked like they were hardly worn at all.
Mhm.
Maybe the woman like got home and realized that it wasn't the right cut, or she wore it like five
Sure.
times and then, gained weight or lost weight or whatever. But really good jeans, and we would bring them home and wash them and measure them
Mhm.
and picture them and post them with all the measurements, so that, women, because if they stretch out the jeans.
Yeah.
And we were power sellers for like 3 years, and that's all we did.
That's
So I've
awesome.
been like major thrift store shopping, and I bought a whole set of plates. It was really cool when we first moved here, because kind of tragedy struck when I lost my dad. I ended up
Mm.
losing all of my belongings in Canada, all my mom's belongings, my grandparents' belongings, everything that was in storage was stolen when my dad
Oh my
passed
god.
away. And so I lost basically everything from my childhood. The only, luckily, thank God, the only thing I do have is all the photo albums. So that's a
Oh
really, at
man.
least I have that, but I don't have anything, none of
Yeah.
my, none of the furniture I was supposed to inherit, or any of the objects from my childhood. It's all gone. And
Oh.
and someone said to me once, if you really want something, ask the universe and it'll come back to you. It'll find a way to come back to you. And
Hmm.
so I went to this thrift store with my husband when we first moved here to Seattle, and we went into this one section of the thrift store, which was kind of like the fancy section. Ooh, the fancy stuff.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
right there was this stack of 12 plates, and I just burst into tears because it was the exact, these are like hand painted from the UK, the exact same plates. I mean, it wasn't obviously the exact same plates from my childhood, but it was the same print, and they're hand
Right.
painted. The same print from my childhood. I just burst into tears. I was like, this is the
Wow.
coolest thing. So we bought them, and been using them for the last 8 years, and it was
Wow.
so cool that I have that piece of my childhood. And it's because of a thrift store. Those things you get in thrift stores you can't get in other places because
Right.
they're not sold anymore. But yeah, you can get all kinds of like you need a coffee, if you need a coffee maker or a kettle. You go to the thrift store, don't buy it new. Are you kidding me?
No, yes,
You go for the
absolutely.
hunt. The hunt is so much fun because sometimes you got to go to a few thrift stores to hunt, and end up, yeah, like I'd never buy a mug new. I mean, there's so many
No.
awesome cool mugs at thrift stores. I mean, you have to sort through their garbage to find the treasures, but
Yeah,
that's the fun part.
but that's
Yeah.
yes, I love it. I love
Mhm.
it. And it keeps us from contributing more to the waste issue with um clothes. And I mean, and I get that people are on a budget. I totally totally understand this. um I'm actually in between jobs right now, so things are a little tight. So if anyone understands budget needs, it's me. But that's why I love thrift stores so much, because they offer you that opportunity to shop, and to shop really well, on a budget, and it keeps us from contributing to fast fashion. I don't know how many people may know what that means, but so there's fast fashion is essentially, um, our clothes cost so little, and someone is paying the price in that chain of where it how it got to us. Like,
Mm.
someone created it, someone sold it to the U.S. So someone is getting shafted, basically.
Well, I think
And
about all the children, like they have these sweatshops with like children
yeah,
in an
yeah,
Asian country that is, or maybe in an African country that is sewing. And I look at that, like I'll look at, $5 leggings. I'm like, who sewed these leggings for five
yeah.
dollars? Like, I mean, because I know
There's a
like they're not,
reason there are
we don't
people.
have machines
Hmm.
yet that are pumping out, this is obviously there's some child, or some, maybe a mother, young mother, who's getting paid like 10 cents a day to like work for 18
Hmm.
hours. And
Oh yeah,
these yeah, exactly, we need fair trade. And I know we're totally getting a
right.
little bit off topic, but I think also part of health is to not be ignorant and of our purchases, and also not feel guilty about our purchases either, to make sure that our purchases
Right.
are going towards things that we can really feel good about.
Exactly. Yeah, like I love, there's a company called there's tons of really great fair trade. And what fair trade means is that people get paid what they should have gotten paid. They get paid a fair wage to make what they made. And there was actually a huge catastrophe in I think 2012, if I'm not mistaken, where I think it was in, oh, I want to say, someone's got to correct me on this, but I want to say it's Indonesia. I'm not, but there's a great documentary on Netflix right now called The True Cost, and it goes into all of these details. But the entire building where these people were working collapsed,
Oh.
and it killed thousands of people. And they were working in conditions that were deplorable, and they had been telling management for months and months and months that something was wrong. The foundation was cracking. The walls like were showing cracks in them, and they were just ignored because they don't have the money to. The management doesn't have the money to repair it, and so they're just ignoring it. And then things like that happen. So thankfully, that out of that came the awareness that something needs to change. And I think that's when we really started to see more fair trade businesses pop up. But I mean, it is a huge waste issue because there are tons of communities and tons of countries that get what we throw away. That's one of the biggest things. If the listeners only take one thing away from this, is that away, there is no away. Our trash, like our earth, there's it's going somewhere. Like
Right.
there is no, I'm going to just throw this away. There is no away. That away is going to end up either in our uh, in the ocean or in someone else's land, or it's gonna be someone's problem. And so it's just really a matter of becoming more mindful. And I don't think that plastic. I'm not a huge fan of plastic. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I don't think it's the enemy. I think what we have turned it into is the biggest issue. It's kind of like anything, too much of a good thing isn't necessarily a good thing. And plastic was originally created like 150 years ago or something like that, but it didn't get into the mainstream until like the 1950s. But it was created for the war, like and it really helped. It helped with medical issues during the war, and it helped like a lot of the parts for planes and things like that. It made it cheaper, it made it lighter. So I don't think that plastic is necessarily the enemy. But what we have created it to be, like it's literally everywhere. Our clothes are made out of it. Our like synthetic fibers, our carpets, our it's just insane. Like I'm reading this book called Plastic: A Toxic Love Story, and I just got started on it. But it's by Susan uh, Frinkle, I think. And we were just talking about how we can't pronounce names, and that's my moment. So, but he just started talking about how she challenged herself to go a whole day without touching one single thing of plastic, and she failed within the first like 30 seconds. So then she changed it to be, she was going to write down every single thing she touched that was plastic. And it was insane for her to actually have a list of all of that. And so really it's just becoming more mindful, and not just recycling. I know that a lot of people, their minds may go there. Recycling is a good alternative, but I don't think it's the best way to handle what we've got, because in the end, recycling something has to stop somewhere. It can't just keep being recycled unless it's glass or paper. Plastic eventually becomes too flimsy or too weak to become recycled, or it gets turned into something that can't be recycled. Like, for instance, a lot of companies, they'll make like benches or chairs out of like recycled plastic, but then that can't be recycled anymore. Eventually it stops somewhere. So it's really about one of my favorite authors. She's kind of like a pioneer in the zero waste movement. Her name is Bea Johnson. She wrote a book called Zero Waste Home. She kind of lays it out like this. You start with refuse, which you refuse those little things you don't need. Like, do you really need another pen from your doctor's office? No, probably not. So refuse, reduce, which would be like what I mentioned, the trash audit. So just to kind of go through and be like, okay, do I really need that? I know this is a hard one, but do I really need that soda in the plastic bottle? Do I really need that? To reuse, which I take a reusable jar with me everywhere, and I will actually fill up my water bottle like at gas stations, or like if my husband and I go to, one of our favorite places to go is Chipotle.
Yeah.
Yes,
Chipotle.
Chipotle. I love
Chipotle.
Chipotle. They could do anything, and I'm like, okay. I love Chipotle, and they're a little better with the materials they use for what their food is served in. But what I'll do at places like that is I've got my own silverware that's actually made out of bamboo, and it's in this really cute little carrying case. I keep that in my purse, and I keep a reusable napkin in my purse. And then I'll carry around my thing of water. Water is free at places like that. So I'll just go to their soda machine and just get water in my own cup.
And
So
you can
essentially,
even get their fizzy water is free too.
yeah, yeah. So it's great. You just have to, again, you just have to ask. be like, hey, could I use this instead of, and then it also strikes up a conversation too, because people are like, oh, like when I'm eating at places like Chipotle, I'll pull out my reusable fork and my napkin, and people kind of look at me like, what are you doing? And my husband, we went out to lunch with his coworkers a little while ago. They were like, whoa, what are you doing that for? And so then we get to have a conversation about why I'm doing this. So reuse is a big one, and that's more habit forming. It's like, okay, invest in things that you won't forget. Like a lot of people are like, well, I always forget to bring my reusable grocery bags. If you buy some that you really love, like not just the plasticky ones from the grocery store, but to buy some that are made out of beautiful cotton, like really invest in those things that you are going to use, and then you won't forget them. Like that's been the biggest change for
Mm-hmm.
me is I'm actually buying things that I really love. I'm investing up front and being more mindful about it. So reuse is a big one. And then recycle. So we have refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle is down there towards the bottom because essentially we want to try to cut out as much as we can. Again, your lifestyle, your life. Like you just make little changes over time. And I promise you eventually you'll look back and be like, oh, wow, I'm doing a lot. Because it becomes a part of your life. And then the last one is rot, which is composting. And we can talk about that if you want to. But yeah, so recycling is down there towards the bottom. The first three are probably more important than recycling, which is refuse, reduce, and reuse. So
Uh, okay, we'll talk about a little bit about all of them. I wanted to
sure.
share that my favorite reusable bag is from a company that this is like the coolest thing ever. So what I heard, the reason why I didn't want to transition to reusable grocery bags is I heard that they are like a cesspool for salmonella.
Mm,
Because I mean, not that I do not buy meat anymore. I do not bring meat home with
sure.
me and raw meat. But back when I did, those packages can leak a little bit of blood and you don't know
Mhm.
it, and then into your reusable grocery bags, and then it's left there, and then the next time you use that bag, maybe you put your lettuce in there, and now your whole family has salmonella. And so
Right.
it was like, ooh, what do you do with that? Like at what point do you wash it, or do you wash it every time? Like
Mhm.
what? And so I've discovered a company that makes these bags that are infused with silver, and the silver
Ooh.
kills, and they actually have tested it, and they have videos online, which is really freaking cool, where they take like not an EPA, there's this like food, maybe I don't know, maybe I don't think it's the FDA, but it's some agency that like looks over restaurants and says, "Hey, this counter is full of salmonella. We're shutting you down." And
Sure.
it's a pen. It looks like a pen, and it has sort of like you take the pen and you basically rub it on the area, and then
Yeah.
and it allows you to see whether, because it changes color, it lets you see whether
Right.
there's some, it's basically it detects protein on the surface, and
Right.
you can probably guess that if it's on like your cutting area, then that protein is probably bad. And so a clean area should have no protein when you use that pen to test it. And so they take this pen and they take their material that has the silver in it, and they'll take like raw chicken and they'll like rub it all over a
Mhm.
plate, and they'll be like, okay, we'll test the plate. Okay, here, the plate's positive. Okay, and then they take their material, which has the silver in it, no water, no soap, and they just rub their material on the plate, and then they test it again. And the woman will even like lick the plate. Like, I believe in this so much, and they'll test it, and it's negative. And
Yeah.
the silver, because like colloidal silver is great to take when you have a cold because it breaks down
Yep.
microbes.
I do. I
Right.
take it.
Absolutely.
I
And
love it.
so the silver infused, they take like, these tiny, tiny silver threads, and they infuse it in the bag. And they also have cleaning cloths. So the entire company is
It.
about um, using no chemicals at all for cleaning. You only just need water, because all their cloths are disinfectant, basically, because there's silver in their cloths. And so you can clean an entire kitchen with just water and their cloths. I'll I'll make sure that in the show notes of this episode at learntoyourhealth.com that I put a link to the person, the distributor that I buy it from, so you can get in touch with her and ask her questions. But these bags, these reusable grocery bags, we bought 4 of them. They're so hardy. We can fill them up, make them like, 25, 30 pounds of groceries in each bag, and they hold up. They're not falling apart. We've been using them for over a year, and I'm really impressed by them, because I saw how much waste, because we always would get paper bags, and it was just crazy
Right.
because they would like, double up the paper
Yeah.
bags, and so we would be using like over 10, paper bags a week, and it would just add up, and it's like,
Sure.
how many trees do I have to kill to get my groceries? Um,
Right.
and I know they might be recycled, but even recycling is not this innocent thing. It takes a ton of
No.
energy to recycle,
Yes.
and then there's also waste from recycling. My uncle, or my uncle on my husband's side, was involved with paper mills, and he said the waste is so horrendous. The amount
Hmm.
of basically chemicals like bleach that
Yeah.
they pour back into the environment, because they have to bleach.
Well.
Even if you're recycling, they use chemicals that are affecting our water and our soil, and affecting our environment.
Yep.
So recycling is a process that takes energy, that takes, there's a carbon footprint with recycling.
Yep.
um Talk a little bit about traveling with these bamboo utensils. Back when I was 19 years old, so 1999, I went to Kerpalu, which is a yoga residential center. It's a beautiful. If you ever want a vacation,
Oh
go
wow.
there. It's in the Berkshires of Massachusetts, and it's like an old. It kind of looks like you're going to Hogwarts for adults. It's so gorgeous, and it's
That's awesome.
yeah, it's so beautiful. It's all vegan food they serve you. And I remember, and then there's like yoga classes. It's a lot of fun. But I went there, and I remember seeing these like hippies pull out their bamboo, this little cloth, traveling
Yeah.
case that looks like a makeup bag, and they pull out their bamboo plate and their bamboo fork and knife and their bamboo, chopsticks. And I'm looking at them like, and they're, of course, they're bamboo, or they're cotton maybe, or hemp. I think it was hemp, actually. Their hemp cloth to,
Mhm.
to their hemp napkin. And I thought that was really cool, but they were like super pioneers, because now it's kind of, you
Yeah.
see it sold everywhere. So where do you recommend people buy these? And,
Um.
should we go to like fine dining with them, or is it just like takeout? Because are we avoiding plastics? Obviously, if it's fine dining, they have their own utensils
Yeah.
that are like metal, so that's okay. So like, fill us in on how do we start doing this today?
Well, so if you want to start today, something you can try is because a lot of people, it is a little bit of an investment over time to kind of pick up all these products, and so you kind of have to go at your own pace. Like I just got my set, I think a few months ago, and I've been living zero waste for like 2 years. Well, I've been striving to live zero waste for 2 years. If you want to start with just like a simple way of trying it out, I encourage you to wrap up your own silverware and just put it, like women especially, we always have these big bags. We can just put them in our purse. Another really great company that I love, so there's a couple of them that come to mind for different options, is uh, oh gosh, my mind just went blank. So the Tiny Yellow Bungalow, she's got this adorable set of reusable bamboo silverware, but she also has one that on one side it's a spoon, and on the other side it's a fork,
Ah,
and it's bamboo, and it's so cute, and it fits in this tiny little pouch. So I feel like that would be a really good one if you're like a gentleman listening and you're like, yeah, I don't have a purse, which you could definitely rock the man bag. But if you don't want to, you can just kind of get one that's really tiny like that. I also had a spork that kind of folded in half. It was stainless steel, and that was the one that I started with. But the one that I have now is made by To Go Wear, and it comes in this neat little this neat little carrying case, and it's like full sized silverware. I honestly just have it in my purse all the time. I never know when I'm going to go out to eat. Luckily, fine dining establishments usually have like silverware. It's not usually the plastic stuff. You do kind of run into the issue of, oh darn, all of my silverware is wrapped in a paper napkin, but that's okay. Things happen.
Or
Um,
straws. What about
yes.
reusable
Oh my
straws?
gosh. Yes, I have. So I have a stainless steel one, and I also have glass. I haven't ventured into bamboo. The glass one is really great if you don't have children. If you do have children, I highly recommend the stainless steel. There's a couple companies. I mean, honestly, you can find a ton of zero waste stuff just on Amazon. Unfortunately, it comes with a lot of the packaging that isn't so zero waste friendly. I
Is that
know it's like,
ironic? Is that the
yes,
definition of
I just
ironic?
like,
Zero waste
yes,
products
oh my gosh,
packaged in not zero waste packaging?
in bubble wrap. Yes, I actually, one of the blogger that I mentioned earlier, Kate Arnell, she will, what she does if she buys something and it comes in like with packaging that she's really disappointed with, she will actually mail the packaging back to the company with a note, saying, this is why I'm sending this back. Could you please either reuse this or find a way of disposing of it? Because that's, over in other countries, they kind of get it right. I think it may be Sweden. The companies are actually responsible for the waste that they produce. Here, it's us. Like,
That
we have to deal with it.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant
Yes.
because I mean, look at capitalism is going to go where the money is, and if you kind of put that rule on them that you're responsible for your waste,
Yes.
they will immediately make it the they'll make it the least amount of packaging possible to save their dollar. If
Right.
the government were to turn around and say, okay, companies, you're now responsible for the waste that you create, that's brilliant.
Yes, I love it. And so she will actually send back the packaging. But with these like Tiny Yellow Bungalow, she doesn't send plastic packaging. It's this really cute business, and she will package it in like paper, or I have some tape actually that is, I don't have any idea what it's made out of, but it's apparently plastic free. And I'm trying to remember I'll remember the company by the time we're done. But so sending back that packaging kind of sends a really good message, I think. And so there's a lot of different options on Amazon. Tiny Yellow Bungalow is a great one. There's actually a store that just opened up in New York City that I haven't gotten to go to that I really, really want to. That's called Package Free Shop, but they have a lot of online stuff. And essentially what these companies will do is their packaging will be paper or cardboard. And like, for example, my toothbrush, the toothbrush is actually made out of bamboo. The little bristles, I think, unfortunately, are plastic. But what I do is I'll break off the head when I'm done with the toothbrush, and I use the long end for plants to write what name. Like basil, I've got basil growing, and I'll write on the end of, so just to kind of reuse it. But that's essentially what looking for alternatives is you're looking for things that you can use for a long, long time that aren't single use, because the single use throwaway things are really what are messing us up. So, but I take mine with me everywhere. I always have a cloth napkin because you can use that when you go into the restroom too, instead of paper towels. I will just use after you wash your hands, I will use my cloth napkin instead of using paper towels or the hand dryer things, which I don't think are that sanitary in the end anyway. But yeah, I use these things everywhere I can. And the same with the reusable straw. I use that all the time. And now I do want to say some people worry that they're not sanitary. I've had a few people ask me about this. There is actually a little cleaning utensil that will come with the straw that is small enough to fit inside of the straw, and you just move it up and down, and you get in there and get all that stuff out. So cleaning it is not an issue at all. I do get that question pretty often.
Yeah, it comes with a
But
pipe
yeah,
cleaner.
yep, exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. What have you
Yeah.
noticed that it has helped your health? Did this being conscientious around this? Because obviously, um, you're not eating as much packaged processed foods
Right.
in order to
Right.
do this. And you go, you could lean towards shopping the perimeter of the store where there's less
Mhm.
packaging. But even if you get some broccoli, my husband asked this today. I told him about our interview, and he goes, "What about?" His first response is so funny. What about the plastic band around the broccoli? What do you do with
Yes.
that? And so I said, I told her, I don't know, she puts it in her mason jar. I don't know. What do you do with or she reuses it? I can't,
Yeah.
I don't have the heart to throw them out. So I have a giant
Yeah.
collection
I do
of
too.
these, and one day I'll find a use for them, but I don't have the heart to throw them out. Because they're super duper strong elastic
Yeah.
bands that are
Yeah.
wrapped around the broccoli. So what can we do with these things?
I use them, so I have a drawer that that I put all those things in. And again, living zero waste, I'm a Christian, and I kind of compare the two because it really helps me visually. Like, as a Christian, I'm always striving to be like Christ, but obviously that will never happen. Zero waste to me is kind of the same thing. I'm always striving to have zero waste, but at the same time having grace with myself and realizing I'll never get there. And so, because honestly, we live in a throwaway culture. I mean, we do that with our relationships too, like with Facebook. Everything,
Mm.
it's kind of like, and to me, it's kind of like this weird art, like mirror of our society and our culture. Everything has become very fake, very plastic, which as our relationships have. So anyway, but back to the thing that comes with the vegetables. So I keep them just like you do, and I have a drawer, and I actually will use them for, like, if I get there are some things that I still have to get in, unfortunately, throwaway uh, containers, just because I don't live in an area where bulk shopping is quite caught on yet. And so when I buy something that's in like a bag, I will use it to wrap up that bag. The big thing with those twist ties that I can tell you though, and this has helped me so much, is like I'm a big fan of plants. And if I have a plant that needs a little bit of encouragement to grow, I will actually use the twist tie. Like right now, I have a silver quill plant that kind of leans over a bit. So I'll put like a bamboo stick in the soil, and then I wrap that little twist tie around the bamboo and the plant to kind of help him stabilize him a little bit. And it's nice because it's gentle on the plants, and you can kind of adjust the width because it is the twist tie. So that's a big one I use that for. And then I'll just keep them. I use them to wrap. Oh, here's another one I just started doing. My computer cord. I'll actually use one of those twist ties. I use it to kind of wrap the cord back up. So if you have or if you're tired of your cords getting tangled up, like my headphones are always tangled in my purse. You can take those twist ties and reuse them for that. So there's all kinds of things you can do. I'm sure there's like a million ideas on Pinterest, but those are just the ones that I have found really work for me. But yeah, I keep all of those things because, I mean, eventually you're going to need them. You're like, wow, I really wish I had something to hold this together. So yeah.
Right, love it. So we can refuse the plastic when someone offers it to us.
Yep.
We can
Hmm.
reduce by looking around our environment and going, where can I stop buying this and reduce this and replace it? For
Hmm.
example, we've had these, well, okay, occasionally we live near Seattle, right? So
Yeah.
occasionally my husband and I partake in coffee in
Yeah.
travel containers that get thrown out, and then we're like, oh, this is plastic and cutting down trees and gross. And so we have these travel mugs, but the travel mugs are just not, are these travel mugs just, they're gross too. They're also plastic. And so I've been looking around for a replacement travel mug, and I finally found a company I'm really excited about. And it's stainless steel. The stuff's gonna last forever. It's
Yeah.
super durable, and so I just took all the travel mugs and all the plastic sports bottles and all that, and we're never buying another one again. And we
Yep.
replaced it with the stainless steel awesomeness. Basically, it can either hold cold water or hot water, so either way. And I once um, talked to a man who he's actually a doctor, and he teaches this, and he talks about the microplastics in and how bad
Yeah.
they are. And he said, if you drink, let's say Starbucks, for example, that little plastic lid, the little white plastic lid they put on the paper cup,
Mhm. Yeah.
that is getting leaching into your coffee every day, and that's obesogens and
Mhm.
carcinogenic, because as the hot steam comes up, the condensation, the heat makes the plastic start to give off microplastic, and then it drips into the coffee and your tea, and you're basically drinking microplastic every time you order a Starbucks
Yeah.
or any coffee anywhere that has that white plastic lid. And he said
Yep.
what he does is he has this travel mug that's a stainless steel, and he has about four of them in the back of his car. Obviously keeps them clean, but has them in the back of his car. He said for him he had to have four, because if he had one, he just used it, and then he'd like bring it inside to clean and put it in dishwasher or whatever, or just clean it, and he'd leave it by the sink, and then he'd forget it, and then the next day he'd be driving around, and he end up to using the plastic cup that they gave him again, or the paper
Yeah.
and plastic. And so he found with two it wasn't good enough. With three it still wasn't good enough, because he would always just kind of gather them up and then bring them into the house and leave them beside the sink to wash. But he found the magic number was four, because he wouldn't let
Nice.
four of them 4 days in a row like sit by the sink. So by that time he'd have at least washed one of them, and so he'd end up having
Sure.
to wash enough to bring them back into the car. So that was his strategy of completely always avoiding any kind of coffee that we take out, or drive-through coffee that has that plastic lid, um,
Yeah.
totally for health reasons. But also I found that it's so much easier to stay hydrated when we're traveling
Yes.
around with our, really solid, like it won't leak. It keeps the water cool, or keeps your iced tea or whatever it is cool. So getting those reusable stainless steel containers that are going to last you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
those
Yep.
are those are fantastic. Does that one thing that you do as well?
Yes. So again, I'm still finding those things that I can invest in a better quality one. But I too have I actually have a Yeti cup that I use for like drinking and things like that. And I do yoga, so I also take my stainless steel water bottle with me when I do that. And but it's really great, like you were saying. I find when I'm traveling, I before I wouldn't stay hydrated because you have to buy a new water bottle every time,
Right.
you know. And so, but now, like when I take my own, I just go into the gas station, like what we were talking about with the Chipotle, and I just go up to their soda machine and I just get water, and it's free. And and so I stay hydrated. Granted, it doesn't make my husband happy because we have to stop like every 2 hours for me to go to the bathroom.
Right.
But you stay hydrated in those really important times when you have to. Oh, and for I recently I was flying to actually I was flying out to Seattle to see my little sister lives out in Washington, not in Seattle but right outside of it. And I was so excited because the airports now, so a lot of people may not realize this, but you can take a reusable water bottle
Mm-hmm.
through security. It can't have water in it when you take it through security, but you can take the bottle with you.
Nice.
So Yeah, so and a lot of airports are starting to put these filtration water systems, and it'll count. It is so cool. It has this little counting thing on the side where it shows you how many water bottles that machine has kept out of the ocean. It is the coolest thing, and it's filtered water. It has like, and you just put your water bottle in front of it, and it has this sensor, and it will initiate the water to start flowing down into your water bottle. And so even airports are starting to come up with ways to do that. If the airport doesn't have that, you can go to basically like any Starbucks or any food place and be like, can you just fill this up with water? And they will. I do the same thing with tea. I will take my favorite tea, my reusable coffee cup with me through security, obviously empty. And then when you get over to the other side, you just go to like Starbucks or something and ask them to give you hot water, and they will. I've never had anyone be like, no, you know. So yeah, they're so great, and they'll even like if you're someone who's like, but I can't have my water without ice. Ask them for ice. They may even give you ice. So there's, I mean, really, again, it just comes back to asking. Like, don't be afraid to ask. I have heard no. A lot with this. Like I'll be like, can I use my own container for this? And people have told me no. And the funny thing is sometimes it's the same store that later tells me yes. You just weren't speaking to the right person.
Right. Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, so you just and you never know. But those are just some traveling hacks, and again, it really enriches your life. Back to your, I think you had asked me if I noticed like an improvement in my health. I've always been really, I try to live healthier. I try to eat clean. And so I've always kind of noticed a difference in how I eat, but I've noticed a huge difference in my health as far as living. Like I don't clean with a ton of chemicals. It's funny, the company that you were talking about earlier, I think I know what company it is. And I buy a lot of their cloths that I clean with. Again, with that stuff, you have to worry about microplastics too, but it's kind of like you have to weigh, you kind of have to weigh a lot, and a lot of those microplastics come out of our dryers and our washing machines. But again, you kind of have to weigh the pros and con list. So I do have those cloths and I do clean with them. I really love them. And vinegar is a great alternative as well. I love essential oils, and I have a company that I buy mine from usually, and I still have a little bit of cleaner left from when I bought a ton of stuff from them. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I have to think of an alternative for when this is gone. But there's a company down where I live that sells a product called Dr. Bronner.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of their soap. I love their soaps. But they make a really great cleaner. I can't remember what it's called, but it's white. And a store near me actually sells it in bulk. So I'll just buy it and then I water it down and clean with it.
So wait, you can go to the store with like your mason jar and fill it up with their, like when you say they
Yep.
sell in bulk, do they like pour it into your mason jar for you so you don't actually have to have a plastic jug of the stuff?
So yeah, essentially, near me there's a little store, and they have these. Granted, they're like big jars of the stuff, and they have a pump on top, and you bring your own container and you just pump what you need into your container. Granted, there's still plastic there because the thing that the bigger container is plastic, but you're eliminating a ton of plastic because it's a bulk item. And the store deals with the disposal, and you don't have to. The other big thing too that I can tell people is to really research recycling in your area, because there's a ton of different options. Like, for example, I love talking about zero waste beauty products because I think they're just really fun. And I just started getting a whole bunch of makeup, and I really transitioned, and I love all the products that I use. And one of the products I use is a safety razor, and the safety razor is stainless steel, and at the bottom you twist it and it opens up, and you drop the safety razor into the top of it, and then you close it and you use that until you feel like the razor's dull. And I actually have a jar of the dull razors under my sink that I kind of collect. And there's a local local organization where I live that will recycle metal, like different metals and things like that, and you
Mm-hmm.
can actually get back a little bit of money from it too. So there's all kinds of so,
Nice.
so there's
A
yeah
free shave.
yeah exactly. um and so there's all kinds of and like the mason jars, when the lids start to get a little bit rusty, like the circle part, not the circle part, I'm sorry, the what do you call that part, the one with the actual seal on it, they sometimes get a little rusty.
Mm-hmm.
I will hold on to them in like a separate place in my home, and I'm just kind of collecting them until I have enough to take there. And then the other thing too is that people don't realize that not all plastics can be recycled. I think it's number 5 and above. Again, you'll have to research your specific area, but a regular recycling facility can't recycle all plastics. If you look at the bottom of anything plastic, it has that like recycling symbol with a number in the middle of it. That is essentially just telling you what kind of plastic it is, like the different chemicals that make up that plastic. And not all recycling centers can recycle every single plastic. So I have a box of number 5s, I think they are, in my basement because I found a center. I think I just Googled it. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's the name of the center is, but you can actually mail them to this place because the regular recycling center won't recycle them. They'll just throw them in the trash. So it's important to know like what the recycling is like where you live, like what can actually be recycled, what condition does it have to be in. So if you do recycle, thank you. That's a huge, awesome thing. But take it one step further and find out, okay, are all these things I'm putting in my recycling bin actually recyclable?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nice. That company, the one with the stainless steel that we've now replaced our hot traveling mugs and also our water flasks.
Mm-hmm.
All of that's being replaced. And I will never buy another sports bottle. I will never buy another
Yep.
bottle again, ever, ever, ever. It's called Hydro Flask,
Oh,
and
I've heard of them.
they're out of Bend, Oregon. So they're crunchy hippie granola. And they go to their website, Hydro Flask. I'm sure it's hydroflask.com, but they have also like thermoses you can buy, so like food, so keep your food hot or cold.
Yes.
And they have
Yep.
what I thought was cool is they have these cloth um coolers. So like instead of buying a plastic cooler that keeps your picnic cold or whatever,
Mhm.
they've got these ones that you can actually, it's like a backpack that you can wear or you can carry it, and so it's soft, so that then it's easy to put away in your closet or whatever. It's not bulky, it's not a giant plastic
Yeah,
thing either. And it's just an insulated bag. And so they sell that as well. They have all
that's
kinds of
awesome.
options, and they have the straws and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I got one. I just got one just to try it out, and I fell in love. And I've used all kinds of reusable flasks in the past, and this one's been the most
Mhm.
like solid, sturdiest. It feels good. It doesn't change the flavor of your water. It's not leaching into your water. It's high quality stainless steel, so it's not like leaching lead or anything into your water.
I love the
And
colors.
oh yeah, the colors, they've right now they have so my favorite color is blue, and they have this gorgeous, it's for a limited time only, um a limited production of this gradient that goes from like a dark blue to a light blue, and it's a 40-ounce bottle. So
Ooh.
like, and they even have a 64-ounce giant travel jug if you're like,
Wow.
if you're like super
That's
thirsty.
awesome.
They call it the
And I
growler.
need one of those though because my husband is amazing, and for my birthday this year I begged him to get me a Berkey water filter. Those
Yes.
things, oh my gosh.
Berkey is the
And he
best.
did. Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
Nice.
Yay! And I was so excited. And but when I'm traveling, I'm like, man, I really wish I had like a huge thing that I could just fill up all this Berkey water in and just keep refilling it throughout my day because I've become a water snob.
Oh,
Like,
totally. Well, then you should check
yeah,
out their 64-ounce growler, and it's gorgeous, like all
yes,
these different colors. And yeah, so definitely I love it. And it
that's
really
awesome.
does, it'll keep your water cold for 24 hours. Like I filled mine up. I take it everywhere with me. So naturally when I went to bed last night, I filled it up with cold water. We have luckily
Hmm.
we live on a well, so it's well water. It's very clean, healthy water.
Oh, nice.
And I put it by the bedside. And this morning I went to drink it. And I'm like, I got brain freeze. I mean, and
Oh my
it's
gosh,
like
that's
that's
great.
how
Yeah,
long it lasts. It really does keep your liquids, your water cold that long. So I thought that was really cool.
that's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, so that's Hydro Flask, and that's I am very happy with them so far. So
That's
oh,
awesome.
and another thing I love about them is they have this, it's like a purse that holds your hydro flasks so that when you're hiking, like especially if you get the 40-ounce one, because
Mhm.
when we go hiking, I have these hiking sticks that are like they're poles, they're kind of like ski poles, but they're hiking poles.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so I just like holding a bottle is kind of cumbersome, and so they sell this cloth purse that holds your water bottle for you. So if you're traveling
That's
around
awesome.
with your 40-ounce bottle all the time, you can just throw it on your shoulder, and it looks
And just
cool.
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So yeah, and I think it can be a lot of fun looking at these companies that are going zero waste are also companies that have a conscience. They're looking at
Yeah,
being fair trade. They're looking at making sure that their products are made environmentally friendly and made with environmentally friendly materials so that we know it's non-toxic. So I think we're
right.
getting a great ecology from this movement.
Yes, I love because that's one of the big impacts that not only does our waste impact our health, it impacts um, the health of this beautiful planet that we have been given. And I am a strong believer that we need to take care of it. And one of the big things that I'm passionate about when it comes to the zero waste is how our trash is impacting the ocean. So
Mhm.
just as a little bit of like kind of the science behind it. I am not a scientist at all, but I play one on TV. I'm just kidding. I'm actually I'm an actor, so I do not pretend to be a specialist in this at all. I got my degree in musical theater, so if you're listening and you're like, "Wow, I don't think I could ever learn any of this stuff," don't believe it. Yes, you can. So there's actually 5 gyres out there that kind of control the currents in our ocean, and what happens is all of our trash, all of our plastic, they eventually end up in these gyres, and they just get stuck, and they don't stay there because they end up like there's scientists that have studied the different trash that ends up in these gyres, and sometimes uh, they can go from one gyre to another, but they'll get stuck in this. It's basically just like this sludge of just trash and
Mhm.
plastic. And life really can't flourish there because of how toxic it is. But what happens is the trash will eventually break up, like we were talking about, and become a microplastic. But not only does it become small, it also becomes this toxic, um, like little plastic thing that our animals in our ocean think is food, because the plastic will actually absorb like all of those chemicals that are kind of getting into our ocean, whether that's by our shampoos when we shower, um, our chemicals that we clean with. Eventually all that stuff ends up in the ocean.
Mhm.
And so these gyres are just circling wastelands. And like there's a documentary on again on Netflix. I'm a big documentary person.
Me too.
And yes, if I ever have a downtime, I'm like, what good documentary can I watch today or rewatch? There's a documentary on Netflix right now called Plastic Ocean. It is phenomenal. It is so good. I think I've watched it like 4 times. But they really show you how the plastics are affecting our oceans and our world, because they take you to this island. I think it's off the coast of South America, and the island is so small that there's trash everywhere,
Mm.
everywhere. They have no more space to walk. Like, they show you like this, it's just everywhere. The kids have to walk in it. They play in it because it's all that, like, there's no greenery, there's no vegetation, because they have nowhere else to put it. And it's um kind of like a weird, eerie look into where we're going to end up if we don't get a handle on this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
eventually we will run out of room. Like,
Mm-hmm.
our planet, we think it's like so big, and it's really not that big. Like, it's big, but and then also, like, scientists have only found about 1% of the amount of plastic that should be in the ocean right now. And so the rest of that 99%, they believe it's either sunk down into the very depths of the ocean, which is kind of scary to think about, or that it's become so small that they can't find it. Which,
Mm-hmm.
if you can't find it, if you can't see it, how do you know what impact it's having on our planet? So again, it's not something that I don't think we should be scared, but I think we should become aware of, like, what these things are doing. So when you do go, like, now when I go to buy, like, something I don't need at the grocery store, like, let's see, one of my favorite things that I like to buy are these, like, organic, like, it's not, it's shaped like a Reese's cup, but it is not a Reese's cup. It's
Oh,
made
like,
like with date. And
oh, okay, because I know, like, there's a brand called Justin, and they make like a
I
organic
used to eat
Reese's
those.
cup, and yeah.
Yep, I used to eat those, but these are even more raw. But like, now when I go to buy one of those, I think about all of these different things, and it kind of helps inspire me. It's not really too much of an effort to tell myself no, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to get pleasure out of this treat for like 5 seconds. And what impact is this piece of trash having down the road? So again, I'm nowhere near perfect, and we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to eliminate 100% of trash. Often when I tell people I live a zero waste lifestyle, they start to go, "Well, that right there is plastic. What about that? That's plastic. What about that? That's plastic." And I'm like, okay, this isn't like a here, prove Rachel wrong moment. It's a how can we look at. It's almost like they're trying to get justification to not try it by pointing out all of the ways that you're going to fail. It's the weirdest thing. But then I just encourage them to think about, like, this isn't me saying that I'm 100% zero waste. I'm not trying to claim to be something I'm not. I'm just well aware of what, and I have so much to learn, but the things that are happening in our world. Like, a lot of times people don't realize that when you throw away trash, like, for example, if you bag up your leaves, if say you're raking leaves like in the fall or something, we get a lot of that around here in Virginia, and people will rake them up and put them in trash bags and then throw them
Mm-hmm.
away. When you put Mother Nature, like, into a plastic bag like that, it can't decompose properly. It becomes like this toxic sludge that then leaks into our soil. And then again, that will eventually end up in our oceans. So it's all connected. And so yeah, it's just one of those things where you just have to keep going, and over time you eliminate more and more and more. And it really should be something that enlightens you, that encourages you, not something that frustrates you. I don't want anyone to think that they need to go and figure out how to make their own makeup. Like, that's not what this is, or make their own laundry detergent, unless they want to. There's a lot of really great recipes. I don't do any of that stuff, but there are a lot of people that do, and they sell it in glass jars. So it's just figuring out what works best for you and your family and your life, and doing the little things that you can that will add up to make a huge impact, even though it may not feel like it.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about rot. So we talked about
Yeah.
refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle,
Mhm.
and now let's talk about rot. The compost aspect. Not everyone lives in a home with a garden, but let's talk about
No,
the impact of composting or being conscious of composting and how that can help us.
absolutely. Well, and just like what I talked about with the leaves, if they're put in plastic bags, they can't properly decompose. It's the same with our food waste. It just becomes like this toxic sludge. So I live in a townhouse. I don't live in an area where I can necessarily have like a pile of compost. I do eventually want to. They do make some composting systems, and I'll explain what that is, like that are portable, so you can actually have them in places like where I live. But essentially, what composting does is it takes like if you have any lettuce that kind of is on the verge of being bad, or you have like the ends of vegetables that you cut up, you can make those into soups actually if you want to make broth. But what I do is I will put all of those things into the freezer, and I have a friend that actually has pigs, and so I take her my food waste for her pigs. But then I also have a friend that does have a compost. And what she does is she'll take it and she just throws it onto her compost pile. And the key with composting is that you want to get a good mix of the food waste and like dirt. So you essentially are making soil for like if you have a garden, or if you don't have a garden, you can just put it like in nature. It just becomes really nutritious because it has the opportunity to break down properly. And a lot of people will have a worm compost where those little guys do a ton of good things. So if you see worms in your soil, that is a great sign. That means that the worms are happy, that they are like eating all that stuff. And then honestly, what they do is they eat it and it goes through them and it comes out the other end as something that helps to kind of make that food waste into compost. And they help that process along. But if you want to look into composting, it sounds more intimidating than it actually is. It's just making really great, nutritious soil for your garden, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's making your food waste into something that can be productive, and it doesn't just end up in your trash bin.
And
And
there's some counties that offer compost
yes,
like a service. Out here in Snohomish, we don't have that, but
yeah, we don't either.
in Shoreline, which is just north of Seattle, where my parent-in-laws live, they have three bins. They have a garbage bin, a recycle bin, and they have a compost bin. And they
Yes,
live in a condo, so they're it's just they have a little garden, but not big enough for them to justify composting. But everyone in Shoreline can compost, and they put, eggshells, even like if you have seafood, the seafood shells, bones from animals, like you said, food that's gone bad, like lettuce, leftovers,
mhm,
leftover vegetables, or if you've squeezed some oranges to make orange juice, you put the peels out, the banana peels,
yep,
like just all of
banana
that
peels,
stuff,
yep,
put it in the compost. And so I would urge listeners to check in with your local waste service and see if they have a compost service. If you're not interested in making your own compost for your own garden, if you are,
right,
oh my gosh, it is so life-changing for your garden.
yeah,
It's so great,
yeah,
and it becomes a lot of fun to do it. But if you don't have the like a garden, then see if they can remove compost from you, because they take the compost, and like in this area, there's a place where you can actually go and get that compost, and
yeah,
then bring it back to your garden. So there's like free
yep,
compost, and the counties will also take all the yard clippings, from all the public areas where they've the public parks, for example. They take all those clippings and they'll compost them, and then they'll give that compost away for free. You can come and grab it and use it in your garden if you want. So they're not just
yeah,
throwing that into the
absolutely.
landfills.
And I know, like in New York, a lot of like for people that if they live in New York City, I know a lot of the farmers markets there too. Sometimes we'll have people that will take your, like they'll have a composting area there. So that like there's like I know follow a blogger that lives in New York City, and she'll freeze her food waste, and then she'll just take it with her to the farmers market, and you just dump it in the bin there. So even places that don't have that system, like, because I would love to have that here. We're trying to get it here, but it takes time. You have to have a certain amount of interest before the trucks will come to your area. I know California does it. Washington, like I think when I came out to Washington, I even took a picture of one of the bins because I was like, yes, I was so excited. But if they don't have the system, sometimes you can find other ways to get rid of it too. If you don't want to compost yourself, like maybe a friend has one, or if there's a local farm, sometimes they'll take those things for their chickens or their pigs. The only things you can't compost are like fish or meat, because it becomes putrid and it's actually harmful to animals if they eat it. So don't compost those things, even if they're leftovers.
But
They
like
will. They're not
bones can be
compostable.
compost, right?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I know that bones make a really great broth.
There you go.
If you turn them into broth, but I don't know if they can be composted. I would say no, just because I know that you can't compost
Meat.
meat,
Yeah.
and so I would think the same thing because of the bone marrow. I'd wonder if it would somehow become putrid. I heard a story. I think it was someone at church told me that she had a friend that didn't realize you couldn't compost fish, and she was composting fish, and I guess her neighbor's animal got into it and got really sick, and that's how she found out she found out the hard way that you can't compost things like meat and fish, which is I'm glad that nothing happened to the animal, but it is a good lesson to learn for us all. So yeah, there's all kinds of different things you can do to get rid of your waste. And it does take a little bit more effort. Like when I take it's funny, my husband and I work for our church. I sing in the worship band and he plays guitar. So we have to leave pretty early on Sunday mornings. And when I take my waste, the waste out of the freezer, sometimes I'm like rushing and I'm like, gosh, why do I do this? Like you have one of those moments of this is taking so much, like you're rushing and you're like stressing out. And then I look in my freezer the next day and I think about how much waste was in there and I'm like, okay, that's a ton of waste that I just saved from going into like landfill. And that's what being a zero waster is you're trying to save as many things from going to landfill as possible. Yeah, so.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, we have every Thursday we drag our garbage, and every second Thursday we drag our garbage and recycling out to the curb. And even though we're conscientious of one-use plastic, I cannot believe how much it's like a giant bin full every week.
Yes, I
And
know.
that's
Yeah,
just one household. And just imagine
yeah.
there's hundreds of millions of people in America alone, and then North America, and then billions of people in the world. And just it's just going to get to a point. An example of this is a few days ago I went to a health talk, and this woman was talking all about, I'm going to have her on the show. She was awesome, talking all about
Oh, great.
magnesium, and one of the elements or minerals that is really important is boron. We don't need much of it.
Oh,
We need like 3 milligrams a day. It's not that much, but it's boron and magnesium and calcium and vitamin K and vitamin D. They're all needed to build bones and build healthy joints. And if you just take a calcium magnesium supplement, you're like deficient in K2, or deficient vitamin K, and you're deficient D, vitamin D. Your body just can't lay down the bone. It needs more than just calcium, magnesium. And so it needs boron, right? So that's one of the things it needs. And she, in Nevada, this drive in between LA and Las Vegas, you drive right by a boron mining facility, and they give tours, and she went for the tour, and she asked, because you can buy borax, which is a cleaning agent that's just
Yeah.
basically 100% boron. And she
Yep.
said, and you can also buy supplements. And she goes, the problem with the supplements is they put a lot of fillers in it. It's a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And she goes, where do they get the boron for the supplements? And he points basically to the mine. And she goes, where do they get the boron for the borax? And he points to the mine. She says, what's the difference between food grade and the cleaner? He says, there's no
Yeah.
difference. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
But then what she learned
Wow.
was we are about 60 years away. The entire world, the entire Earth is about 60 years away from being 100% tapped out on boron.
Oh,
And that
wow.
sounds crazy, right? It's like, what's going on? And plus, our the nutrients in the minerals in our soil has been deplete because of the farming practices over the last 100 years. And of course, now there's biodynamic farming and the types of farming that's remineralizing the soil. But boron is being completely removed from the earth because it's used in the manufacturing process of touch screens. And so, and
Oh my
people,
gosh.
and there's planned obsolescence with your phone. Like, think of, I love these companies, right? Like, I love that what they've done for the world, but look at also what they're doing to the world. Apple being one of them. Every year they come out with a new phone, and I feel like
Right.
that's a little ridiculous. Like, I get that
Oh
they're
yeah.
just trying to make money, but really every year they're pushing people to buy a new phone. And if a trillion people buy a new phone every year, I mean, and then they just throw away or recycle or whatever that phone, basically these precious metals are being used in these phones. Like, they use gold, and they use platinum and silver, and they use all these different things to make these circuit boards and everything, but they're using boron to make the screens. And they predict that in the next 60 years we'll run out of boron, because of how
Oh my
much
gosh.
that we make these screens. And so, thinking about no waste, yes, it's good to consider like these one-use plastics, but also think about how many times in your lifetime do you really need to upgrade that iPad? Like, how many phones do I really need to go through? I try to make a smartphone last as many years as possible, and do as much as I can with that smartphone to keep it going. So I don't get tempted to buy the next smartphone. You know what I mean? So, and
Right.
I even
Right.
have friends who get thrifty and they just buy used smartphones, and just, there's ways to play with the software so it doesn't get bogged down. But Apple was actually recently held accountable because they discovered that whistleblowers discovered that they were intentionally making the batteries and making the phones slow down when they reached a certain age,
Yeah.
so that they could
Yep.
force people to buy new ones. And this is gluttony, and this is destroying, this is the
Yeah.
mentality that's going to destroy our planet. Um, we have to hold, I mean, I believe in capitalism, but I believe in, ecological capitalism. So we have to hold these companies accountable. And the only way we can as individuals, because we're like tiny little ants that feel very alone and feckless. But when we together combine our power by putting our dollars, investing our dollars in what we believe in, and not investing our dollars in what we don't believe in,
Right.
we can change, we can tip the scales. And so, like I
Yes.
say,
Absolutely.
right, don't put money towards GMOs. Don't put money towards pharmaceuticals if you can help it. Put money
Yeah.
towards organic, local, sustainable, ecological, no waste. Put money there. If we all just turned our investing into that, within a very short period of time, these companies will notice and they will have to make changes. And I love that.
They will.
If you're
Yep.
the woman that you follow on YouTube sends her packaging back,
Yeah.
if all of us started doing that, these companies would take notice. There's things like that.
They
So
would
we
take
need,
it seriously.
right, we need to have them take it seriously. But how we can do it as individuals is we can
Yep.
put our money where our beliefs are, and then
Yep.
share and share and share and share, which is what you're doing. Now, you teach these classes um, at Kickshaw's downtown market.
Yes.
And that is, where's that located?
So it's I live in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and Kickshaw's is this awesome market in downtown Fredericksburg. We have this awesome downtown. It's oh my gosh, it's amazing. I think it was voted one of the top downtowns in the U.S. And not to brag, I love it. But yeah, Kickshaw's, and it's run by a woman named Kathy, who is, and the bakery there is dedicated nut and gluten free, and she is this amazing baker. The things she does with gluten free, I don't even know how it happens. It's
Nice.
so good. And she didn't want it to just be a market or a kitchen. She also wants it to be a place of education. So I've known her for years now, but she does these workshops from time to time. She does them on kombucha and grain-free baking. We have one coming up on canning. But I teach within that whole spectrum. I teach a zero waste class, kind of getting people like introduced to the whole concept and giving them some simple things they can do, because it is kind of a foreign thing over here on the East Coast. Like, on the West Coast, it's like, oh, zero waste. Yeah, I know what that is. But over here, it's kind of like a weird concept. We're still of that mindset a lot of times that what we use just we won't ever have to worry about it again, and what we throw away. And so it's a really great place to be doing it because it's starting to catch on, but it's still really foreign. So it's fun because I'm kind of getting to see that whole movement kind of birth. But yeah, so I teach zero waste workshops with her, and just kind of getting the word out there and trying to do. We actually would love. She and I were talking when we first started all this, and we did some like zero waste video blogs to get kind of the interest kind of brewing for the community. And we were talking about how we would love at the end of all of this effort if we were able to bring that composting system to downtown Fredericksburg. Like, that was our ultimate goal, that we would just, oh my gosh, that would be amazing, because that is a huge thing. And I know that, people are like, oh, that's just one more can I have to take out. But it really does kind of lessen, it kind of relieves pressure in your own life too, because you're just going to throw it away. So why not just throw it into the other bin? And then, like, your trash doesn't smell quite as nasty, and there's all kinds of benefits to it, and you can feel like you're making an impact, and it's really a beautiful thing. So, but yeah, it's a great little place. I love it.
Awesome. It's funny you said, like, on the East Coast how people it hasn't really caught on yet, because once you throw something out, it's gone. Poof, it's out of your life. It's like magic. It's like we're in the
Yeah.
world of Harry Potter, and we just throw something in the garbage can, and poof, it disappears from our life and from the earth and from existence as we know it. And it's very like ostrich mentality, where we've just put our head in the sand, and we're deciding to ignore the reality of what happens to all this waste. But in Toronto, where I grew up, the union regularly has a strike, and they choose probably the hottest month. They choose like July, where they strike for the garbage, the waste management movement union, and
Mhm.
they do it every few years. But if you've ever been in or around Toronto during one of these strikes, you quickly, like by day 3, the entire
Yes.
city smells like it is rotting, like just the most disgusting stench that you cannot get away from, because all the garbage is piling up on the side, like just outside on the in these plastic bags. But everyone just puts their garbage
Right.
in plastic bags and puts them on the curb, hoping that the strike will end soon. And then all of a sudden, these
Yes.
plastic bags are piling up everywhere. And I remember as a kid, our entire neighborhood would just take the garbage bags in our van and drive it down to a few blocks away to the arena, to the the ice skating rink, where there's a big parking lot, and we filled, as a
Mhm.
neighborhood, we filled an entire parking lot 2 stories high. We just had to launch the garbage
Wow.
bags, just this giant pyramid of garbage bags that was so high. And every single neighborhood was doing that. And within, 3 days, it just adds up so much. And you get to actually have a
It does.
visual, like when you visually
Yep.
see, as a community and as a country or as a planet or as a city, like how much waste is happening, then you really want to do things like refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and compost or rot.
Yeah.
Um, because shifting that is, again, helping the planet, but also helping our own health. That's really cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your
Oh
passion with
no, thank
us.
you.
This was really
Thank
exciting.
you so much.
Absolutely. At the beginning of the interview, you said that you listen to other podcasts on this topic. Do you, off the top of your head, do you know them by name? Could you reference
Uh,
some that you recommend that we check out?
so not podcasts, but on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
there's a ton of different bloggers that I watch. One of them is Kate Arnell, and her her channel is called Eco Boost, and that's Eco ECO and then Boost. She's phenomenal. And then there's a young lady in New York, and I'm trying to remember her name. But while I'm trying to remember that one, a great store to check out for the zero waste products is Life Without Plastic. That's a phenomenal little online shop. They're really dedicated um, to cutting out waste, and they have some products that you would never think that you'd be able to make zero waste, but they somehow do. And then Package Free Shop is that package free place that I mentioned in New York. And then the other young woman that I mentioned was Bea Johnson, and that's BEA and then Johnson. And I actually got to see her speak, and she's amazing. She's so down to earth. She's so real. But she actually is from She lives in California, and she speaks all over the world about zero waste. And she wrote Zero Waste Home, and she is a blogger. She posts some things on YouTube, but not like a ton. But if you just type in zero waste to YouTube and just start just kind of devouring everything, that's what I encourage everyone to do, is just start getting information, like start looking at what our waste is doing to our world and our ocean. And honestly, it inspires you to want to take action. So it
Love
becomes
it.
it becomes more of like a want instead of a have to.
That's so cool. What's funny is I'm actually going to be on the podcast called Green Dreamer, which
Hmm,
is a fairly new podcast. It's all about, you know, letting our light shine and thriving through making these ecological choices and
love it.
rebuilding a sustainable world. And so she interviews entrepreneurs that are helping to rebuild a sustainable world and also teaching us how
Hmm.
to have zero waste and more about the zero waste movement.
Oh wow.
So that's a podcast that all listeners should check out, is Green Dreamer, and I'm going to be on it soon. She's interviewing me next week. So yeah,
Oh,
there you
awesome.
go. So
That's phenomenal.
this may be the first time that as a listener, you've heard of the zero waste movement, but it is definitely not the last time, because this is the direction we're going in. And I
Yay.
really feel that, especially as the millennials are going to pick up this torch. I see them as being
Woohoo.
more economical, or thrifty, creative. And I mean, they're being given a lot of challenges, especially like with the housing crisis. And now we see a lot of millennials moving towards living in tiny homes or vans or yurts, or like just seeing how
Yes.
creative. I don't think other generations in the past would have gotten this out of the box. They're willing to get out of the box. They're willing to be creative. I think other generations were kind of like, oh, what would the neighbors think? Kind of like afraid
Yes.
of stepping out of the social norm. And millennials are like, what's the social norm? Like let's make this let's make this creative and fun, and let's make this workable, right? So
Yep.
it's all about, like you said, it's not about being perfect, but it's about being workable and being doable, and we have to make those little changes every day. But it's a fun challenge to throw down,
It is.
to see like how many bags of waste can
Yeah.
you save every month from going to the landfill, because you're going to make these little tiny changes that's going to really
Yep.
add up. And then hosting zero waste parties for your friends to help like make it a fun thing, to kind of make it be an educational experience for your whole community and for your friends, because then as a whole
Exactly.
group we can come together. That's one reason why I stopped having barbecues. I used to have barbecues all the time in the summer, and the cleanup drove me crazy. Like 3 garbage bags
Yeah.
full of cleanup, and it was like everyone left, and I was left with the cleanup. And if I had a zero
Mhm.
waste party, there'd be like almost no cleanup. This would be awesome. I just tell people, when you're done with your
Yeah.
plate, put it in the dishwasher, and when you're done with your napkin, throw it in the wash, and I wouldn't have any cleanup. So I can really see the bright side to playing with this, and making sure that
Yeah.
we have fun with it.
I mean, you can even have parties where you encourage people to, like, if you have girlfriends over for coffee, tell them to bring their favorite coffee mug, and then they take it with them when they leave. Like, you don't even have to do the dishes. So it's all about getting creative and putting fun spins on things. And like, if you have a birthday party, tell people, don't worry about if you want to get me a gift, don't worry about wrapping it, or don't even get me a gift. Like, that's one of the other big things with the zero waste is like, you know, with the whole, obviously you don't want to refuse a birthday gift, but if people know you're living this way, they start to go, oh, okay, maybe I won't get her something that she's just gonna like use for a day and then forget about. So yeah.
Love it. I mean, I like experiences, so they could like take me out for a pedicure or a movie, or
Yes.
a hike or whatever. Like, have an experience over another plastic tchotchke that we didn't need. So
Yeah.
love it. Excellent. Well,
Amen.
yeah, right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been wonderful
Thank
and
you so much.
enlightening.
Oh, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Do you feel like you're missing something? Are you searching for the right answers to solve your health issues? Do you feel like you should have more energy and mental clarity? With everything you're doing for your health, you may be missing one key component. Our body needs 90 essential nutrients every day to function optimally: 60 minerals, 12 amino acids, 2 fatty acids, and 16 vitamins each and every day. Because of the farming practices over the last 100 years, most of our food has 60% fewer vitamins and minerals compared to just 50 years ago. So if you aren't eating 8 cups of a variety of fruits and vegetables each day, you may be missing some of your essential nutrients. These are the raw building blocks the body needs to create new healthy tissue, healthy hormones, balanced digestive system, strong muscles, bones and joints, and maintain an optimal functioning nervous system. Especially if you're experiencing more stress, or if you've gone through an illness like an infection, that takes more resources. So if you're not consuming more vitamin C and more of all the 16 vitamins and all the 60 minerals when you're going through more stress, either physical stress, emotional stress, mental stress, those stressors take more nutrients to kind of survive those bumps in the road in life. And over time, that whittles away, that kind of depletes our nutrient tanks, our stores in our body. Without these 90 essential nutrients, things start to break down. Now, you've experienced these breakdowns. Maybe you get migraines, maybe you're exhausted, maybe your hormones are out of balance, your digestion's out of balance, or you have some aches and pains. Maybe you've even been diagnosed with something. You have a series of symptoms, and if those symptoms all look like something, then we can diagnose it, right? That's what MDs can do. MDs will treat these breakdowns with drugs and mask your symptoms. But if your body has a nutrient deficiency, no amount of drugs will fix the problem. 7 years ago, I embarked on a journey to cure my diabetes, infertility, PCOS, high blood pressure, and chronic adrenal fatigue. I felt like I was a mess. Through my research, I found a company that made natural supplements to address these nutrient needs. They formulated their supplements to exceed all standards of quality. Their minerals are the most bioavailable and absorbed by the body that I have ever found. After getting on their protocols for healthy hormones and blood sugar, along with their dietary recommendations for better health, I reversed my type 2 diabetes, I reversed my infertility, I no longer had high blood pressure, my energy and vitality came back, and after 6 years of trying to get pregnant with my husband before we found these supplements, once we got on these supplements, we were able to conceive our wonderful healthy son, who's now 3 years old, and he is amazing, and we would have never had that had we not found this company. Speaking of our son, he's also taking these supplements for optimal health. His pediatrician thinks they're amazing. If you'd like to give these supplements a try and see for yourself if you're experiencing a nutrient deficiency, please go to takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Their health coaches are phenomenal. I personally know all of them. They're amazing people. And I just want you to know, as my listener, I feel like I need to protect my listeners. I would never promote anything that I didn't 100% believe in and I didn't feel was healthy or good for you. I feel like you're my tribe, and I'm sharing this information. In fact, for the last 2 years, the only reason why I've been doing this podcast is so that I can help as many people as possible gain their health back. And so the health coaches at takeyoursupplements.com, I really trust that they will make sure that you're well taken care of. They will work with you to help determine the best protocol for your nutrient needs and work within your budget. They will also help to implement a holistic protocol that includes supporting a healthy diet and lifestyle. Go to takeyoursupplements.com, fill out the form, and one of their health coaches will get back to you really shortly. And then you guys can schedule a time to talk on the phone, and they will work with you to help you dial in all your nutrient needs. I really look forward to hearing about your experience with them. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me in our Facebook group. Go to Facebook, search Learn True Health, and join our group. Let me know what you think about the wonderful health coaches at takeyoursupplements.com. And by the way, when you go to takeyoursupplements.com and you get assigned to a health coach, they're your health coach. You're not going to keep getting a different person every time. You get one person, and they work with you and they hold your hand for months down the road. They're there for you to support you month after month while you're on your nutrient protocol, and they're helping you dial in your nutrient needs. They're really wonderful like that. So I know you'll enjoy your experience with them, and I'd love to hear about your experience with them. Please feel free to, you can email me as well, ashley@learntruehealth.com. I love hearing success stories. Like I said, I've been working with a supplement company for my own health for the last 7 years, and I've reversed so many issues. I love sharing this information because I think that many of you will be able to resolve your issues with nutrition, just like I've seen many people do. With that said, go to takeyoursupplements.com, fill out your information, and a health coach is very excited to start working with you and helping you get your health back.